Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nichelle and today I am going to be tier ranking every single book that I cried in 2021. Now I believe I totaled these up as I was putting them in, and I believe there are 62 books that I cried in. I read 150 books last year, so that's about 41%. So there's a lot of books in here, so we're going to go through them kind of quickly. But we are going to be ranking them because I included every book that I even shed a single tear in. So some books I truly did shed a single tear, and some books I still cry about sometimes. I wanted to differentiate that. And what better way to do that than to label my tears after Taylor Swift songs? That's right. My tears, for how many tears I shed, are based on Taylor Swift songs, with Ronan being the most severe. As we know, that is the saddest Taylor Swift song that exists. I've actually never listened to it all the way through because it's too sad. And then we get Soon You'll Get Better, a close second to Ronan. And then we have Margaery, Nothing New, and then Champagne Problems. So Ronan is like, I sobbed and will sob if I talk about this book. This book like really gets me. Soon You'll Get Better, cried, probably like audibly, my nose still got stuffy, but it didn't like emotionally devastate me beyond the closing of the book. Margaery is like middle of the road. Like, we probably made a few noises while I was crying, but nothing too snotty happened. Nothing New is some tears were shed. No, there was no noise. It was silent, beautiful tears. Exquisite tears. And then Champagne Problems is like a single tear. Just like a little bit of crying. Okay, so let's jump into it. The books are organized by nothing. So let's jump in. So first book we have is The Love That Split the World, which is an Emily Henry book. You will notice there are quite a few Emily Henry books on this list. And I'm going to put this right in the middle of the road. We're going to start right in the middle. This book is about a girl who is in like a time situation. Time has split. And there's a boy she needs to save in an alternate dimension. I don't entirely remember what about this book made me really sad. But I know that Beau, the boy that she's trying to save, really wants a front porch. Then we have another Emily Henry. This one is A Million Junes, which is, I would say, slightly sadder than The Love That Split the World. This is beach read, but make it cherry trees and magic. They have like a ton of similarities, including the main girl being named after a month, and also them coming to terms with the death of their father. So there's a lot of grief explored in this book about the death of June's father, also the boy she's falling in love with. His twin sister has died, so like it's an exploration of grief. So it did make me cry pretty good. Wait for it, our first Mariana Zapata book. There are, again, like quite a few of Mariana Zapata's books on here because I'm a sucker. Wait for it is the one where it's about across the street neighbors, and our heroine has adopted her sister's kids. Her sister has passed away, and so she's acting as the mother to her nephews. It's like a single parent romance, and I did cry quite a bit. To Hate Adam Scott is another single parent romance. You will notice those show up quite a bit. To Hate Adam Scott, this girl, it's a sequel to Love Jason Thorne. And in this book, she flies over the hedge and she saves his son from drowning in a pool. And then they fall in love. It's like enemies to lovers. I don't remember why I cried, so we're going to put it down here because I don't really remember crying in it. The Casanova is the third Miles High brother book, and it's my favorite. It's very good. It is kind of like a twisty romance. There's like kind of a mystery plot that I love. Like, he's a billionaire. He does like vague business job, but in his heart he's like, he loves art. He has like a country home. It's very cute. He falls for this girl at his office who he used to hate, but then they like fall in love, and then there's like drama with paintings, and it's very good. I actually cried like quite a bit in this. So some of those romances get me. Another Mariana Zapata, this one is Under Lock. This one is the tattoo parlor romance. Grumpy tattooer, and he gets a new secretary, and she's like cute and sunshiny, and it's really cute. I don't remember why I cried in this one either, but I'm sure it wasn't that much. Block Shot. This is a sports romance when I thought I was like, maybe I'm like very into sports romances because I read The Wall of Winnipeg, and I'm not. This is about two sports agents. They knew each other in college and they had like a one night together, but then something crazy happened and now she hates him. But he's like, you're the love of my life. And so he's trying to win her back, but her current boyfriend has cancer. So that made me cry quite a bit. Cancer plotline, that'll get me. The Spanish Love Deception was very possibly the cheesiest romance I read this year, which is saying something because I read quite a few. Is that a bad thing? No, absolutely not. Sometimes you are just looking for some like good old Wisconsin cheese. And this book delivered. There is like a sad subplot. We love that in a romance. And I did cry. This next book wasn't great, but it did make me cry a lot. Like, we're gonna put this up probably here. Like, we're talking like snotty, couldn't breathe, needed to like take a minute when it was done to like collect myself. I found this book because I googled saddest book in Kindle Unlimited because I just am a masochist, and sometimes you just really want a good tearjerker. And this book was sad, but it also wasn't very good. It's about this girl who decides to go to college, and I can't remember what's a spoiler and what's not. She's very ill. I don't know how quickly we find that out, but I think pretty early we're getting hints. She's very sick, and then she falls in love with this guy who is like a secret child. You know. Next is The Traitor Queen by Danielle Jensen. I cried just like a barely little bit in this one. This is the sequel to The Bridge Kingdom. The Bridge Kingdom, the heroine has like essentially messed everything up at the end of the book, and so the second book is about her trying to fix it. And I wish these books, I feel like these books have the potential to be Throne of Glass-esque, which I loved Throne of Glass, and they just like weren't. And I'm still kind of sad about it because I feel like they could have been excellent and they were just okay. Act Your Age, Eve Brown. This is the final book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. This one follows Eve Brown, the youngest sister, who's like super flighty, and she gets a job at an Airbnb. And I think she has like a lot of like realizing things, like a Kylie Jenner realizing things year. And I actually think this one made me cry because I related to it a lot, in a way that also made me like the book less than the other two, because I was like, ooh, this feels uncomfy. But I did cry quite a bit as she like learned about herself and like, you know, had some realizations. Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi is a literary fiction piece that explores kind of the ramifications of addiction on a family and also like mental health through the lens of religious upbringing, sort of. It follows this woman as her mother has a kind of depressive episode and winds up moving in with her, and the woman is like working on her PhD in neuroscience, I believe, and is studying the effects of addiction because her brother was an addict. And it's very good. It sounds like it'd make me cry like a lot, but it didn't really make me cry that much. It's very like heady. I didn't find it super emotional, but I did tear up a few times. The Takeover, another Miles High brother book, so another billionaire romance. This time it is a single parent. So the brother, is in charge of acquisitions. He's trying to buy this woman's company. And it was her husband's company. He passed away a few years ago, but he wanted to pass it on to his 3 boys. And he winds up falling for her, and then slowly falls for the children, and it like, ooh, it like really warmed my heart and made me cry. Ugh, it's really good. Pestilence. This is the weirdest book I read this year, I think. I thought about it long and hard, and I do believe it is just like the most peculiar book I've read. It is about the first horseman of the apocalypse, Pestilence, and this girl decides to go kill him because, you know, he's wreaking havoc, and she's like, I'm gonna go stop him. And so she goes and tries to kill him, and he's like, I can't be killed, dum-dum. And then he like drags her behind his horse, dislocates her shoulder, she gets road burn all over her entire body, like tortures her. Then they fall in love. And I did cry. There's a scene with old people that made me cry, like pretty decently. So it is what it is. A Crown of Gilded Bones. Probably my most disappointing read of the year. I love the From Blood and Ash series. I really enjoyed the first 2 books. Are they, you know, Pulitzer Prize winning literary pieces? No, none of them are. But they're like a really enjoyable time, and I found The Crown of Gilded Bones' writing to be so bad that I couldn't enjoy the story. Even though I like love these characters so much. Anyway, I still did cry. Because not that hard to make cry. You don't have to have quality literature. Dear Erin, this is one of my least favorite Mariana Zapata, my least favorite being Lingus, but this one made me tear up a little bit. Dear Erin is about this girl who starts writing letters to a soldier, and then they meet up and they fall in love. You don't have enough time to really get invested in their romance. Colty is a soccer coach, he's a jerk, but then he falls in love with the girl that he's coaching, and so the jerkiness goes away. From Lukov with Love, this is the title I have the hardest time with. I just will scramble the words. I put them in any order I want. But anyway, From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata made me cry like a pretty decent amount. The main character deals with a lot of family stuff that really got me. Also, it's my favorite Mariana Zapata. Next we have Matt Haig's The Midnight Library. This book is designed to make you cry. It is about a girl who winds up in this library where she can see all these different outcomes of her life. And it's like a self-help book written as fiction. And it made me cry because I'm an easy mark. Luna and the Lie, another Mariana Zapata, another Grumpy Sunshine. This one is about two people who work at a car place. They restore cars. And grumpy guy, nice girl. There's a lot of family drama in this one, and I think this one was a little bit more heartwarming. All Roads Lead Here. This one made me cry quite a bit. It's another Mariana Zapata. I think it's her most recent Mariana Zapata. It's about this woman who moves back to the town she grew up in. Her mother passed away when she was a teen, or we don't know what happened to her mom. Her mom disappeared when she was a teen on a hike in rural Colorado. And so she moves back to this rural Colorado town. She ends up living in this man's garage apartment in an Airbnb situation, but he's not super excited about renting out to her. There's confusion. And he's very grumpy, but this man, he warms up by the end, obviously. We know how this goes. And he also has a son, teenage son. It's very good. Single parent romance. That's what I'm about. The Heart Principle. I thought this book was going to make me cry more than it actually did. I heard things about this book being truly tragic, and I just didn't find it that touching. The main character is very disconnected from her emotions for a lot of the book, and so I felt I was also very disconnected. It was very good, but I didn't sob. A Little Life. Come on, King. A Little Life is the story of Jude St. Francis, and Jude St. Francis has had literally the worst life that anyone could ever imagine, and it's about him trying to deal with the repercussions of that trauma, and all the people that are around him dealing with the repercussions of his trauma. There's a reason that this is often considered one of the saddest books on the internet, because it is. It is devastating. I cried for a week about this. I cried so hard at the end I thought I was going to throw up. This book is devastatingly sad. If you're going to read it, check out trigger warnings. For any of these. If a book's going to make you cry, I think you should, if you're concerned about it, check the warnings. Wall of Winnipeg was my first Mariana Zapata, and I said, it was in my to-read list for so long, but it sounded terrible. I was ew, football romance? Disgusting. Slow burn? Absolutely not. And then I read it, and it was everything I could ever want. It made me cry the appropriate amount for a rom-com. Just right. And The People We Meet on Vacation, another Emily Henry. This is her most recent adult release. It is about two best friends who have grown up, or from the time they were in college, they go on vacation together every summer. Something happened 2 summers ago. Their friendship kind of dissolved, but they're going to have one last vacation. Obviously, they fall in love. It's very cute. I cried. Nothing new amount, I think. Wuthering Heights. I reread this book. I actually read it for the first time when I was 15, and I don't know how many words I actually absorbed from reading it. I think I may just have looked at the words and been there are words here. I read it this time and I really enjoyed it because I wasn't trying to read it as a romance. I was oh, this is just a study of terrible people being terrible. I did cry in it though, because even though Heathcliff is literally a monster, a scum of the earth human being, he did love Catherine. And when he finds out Catherine is dead and is distraught, I cried. Savage Hearts. This is the second book in the Queens and Monsters series, which is a mafia romance. It's my favorite mafia romance series because I like a lot of drama. Is this realistic? No, absolutely not. But did I have a good time? Yes. And in this one, the she's like the sassy best friend character from the first book, but now she gets her own book, and she's kidnapped by the Irish mob and then quickly falls in love with her captors. And I cried in it. Bluets by Maggie Nelson is, I know you can't read the title, but that's what this book is. Bluets by Maggie Nelson is a book of prose poetry as she goes through reflections on grief, using kind of like this metaphor of the color blue. It is beautiful. I like shed a tear. Taylor Jenkins Reid, One True Loves. This book wrecked me. This book made me cry so hard. It is about this woman who married her high school sweetheart, but then on their first wedding anniversary, he goes missing in a helicopter crash. Years later, they've assumed he's dead. She's engaged to someone else, and they find him. And so that's like the premise of the book. And so she's like dealing with the repercussions. She kind of has to like pick, and you just know that someone's gonna get like heartbroken. And it heartbroke me, so I wound up heartbroken. Marriage for One may have the most contrived setup that I've ever read. It opens with this with a wedding, an arranged wedding, because this lawyer decides to marry one of, not his clients, but one of the other lawyers in the office's clients. So for like legal inheritance reasons, and then they wind up falling in love, and she has like a health scare that did make me A Touch of Ruin. This book made me sob. It is the second, I believe, in the Touch of Darkness series by Scarlett St. Clair, which is a Hades and Persephone retelling. This book, something happens that was truly traumatic, but I think it was more traumatic to me than to our heroine. She seems to move on like much faster than me. This series is like very spicy, and there are like spicy scenes, and I'm like still in full-on tears, sobbing. Which was like a little uncomfortable, a little uncomfy. This Is How You Lose a Time War is the story of two agents in a time war. And I can't tell you too much more about the plot because, for one, it's not super important. For two, I don't understand it. But they start exchanging letters and they fall in love. And the love letters are truly stunning. I cried a nothing new amount. Okay. A Sky Before the Storm. Why are the other words so small? It's like A Sky Before the Storm. It is the fourth and final book in the An Ember in the Ashes series. This book made me cry hard. Sky Beyond the Storm is the final book, and we really start to see everything come together. Lots of people die. Sabaa Tahir pulls no punches, and she will kill off everyone. So in the final book, heck of people be dying. They just be out here dying left and right, and it made me cry pretty hard. The Female Persuasion by Meg Wolitzer is like this literary fiction piece that chronicles the lives of several people over the course of, I think, about like a decade, as they kind of are trying to, all of them are having this major life change. Most of them are graduating from college. It's about this girl and like kind of her friend group, but it also is about her mentor. And it's just about kind of all of them going through a life change and trying to create a life for themselves that they like enjoy. And I did cry a little bit in this one, just a bit. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren is about, it's a rom-com. It is like incredibly predictable and incredibly delightful. It is about this woman who winds up going on this dating app where they DNA match you to find out who your perfect soulmate is. And she winds up being like a near perfect match with the founder, but he's like kind of grumpy, you know how they are. And then they fall in love. And she's a daughter. So that is enough to move you up a category. Infinite Country follows this family who's immigrating from Colombia. Well, the mom immigrates from Colombia, the dad is stuck in Colombia, and one of the daughters is stuck in Colombia. I can't remember exactly the details, but it's about this family who's kind of like split between the Colombia and the United States, and just their story over the course of like many, many years. It's a really beautiful story. It made me cry just like a little, just like a pinch. Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng is a beautiful story. Celeste Ng is such a fantastic writer. It's about this family. Their daughter is found dead in a lake that's near their house, and it's kind of them dealing with the repercussions of her death, but also kind of coming to terms and exploring the ways in which the parents and the familial expectations on this girl drove her to her death. And it sounds like it would be super sad, but I really feel like it was just like medium sad. House on the Cerulean Sea is like a heartwarming tale of this guy who works essentially in social services for this like agency for magical children, and he's sent to this home for particularly like difficult children, and he winds up like falling in love with the children and the man that lives there, and it is like so heartwarming, and because it's so heartwarming, it made me cry a lot. Great. Betrayed by Emily Henry, my favorite. This is the first book I read by Emily Henry. I read it in January, and it like really got me. It is about Augustus in January. January has moved into the lake house that her late father left her. It's also the house that he had an affair with, like he lived in with his mistress. And she didn't know about this affair. She thought her parents' marriage was perfect. She is a romance writer. Turns out living next door is Augustus, who was like her college rival and is like a literary fiction writer. They decide to switch genres, and then over the course of the summer fall in love, and it is so good. So good. It made me cry very hard. So it goes in Soon You'll Get Better. What Kind of Woman is a poetry collection about being a woman, and it made me cry. I feel like most poetry collections will give me at least one poem that'll make me cry. Reaper at the Gates is the third book in the Ember and the Ashes series. There is a character death. There's a couple times that I kind of get teary in this book, but there's a character death at the end that like really got me and like moves this up to Soon You'll Get Better. Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. Assassin's Blade is, depending on how you read it, like either the first or the third book. I would recommend it being the third. It's actually a collection of novellas about Selena, the main character's time before Throne of Glass starts. Anyway, this book ends in a very, very sad way, and if you read it as a third book, which I did, you know how it's going to end, and it still ripped my heart out and made me cry so hard. The Whisper Man is a mystery about this man who is like kidnapping children, and then it's like told from a lot of perspectives, including the detective and the dad and then this boy who gets missing. But the dad and the boy, the father and the son, are dealing with the loss of his wife, the boy's mother, and I think those parts really did give me a few tears here and there. Song of Achilles, we know where this is going, right up here. Song of Achilles is the story of Achilles and Patroclus. It's kind of an expansion of a story from the Iliad, an expansion and a retelling by Madeline Miller. It is gorgeous. It is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. It is heartbreaking. The ending is tragic. It is tragic in the way that Greek tragedies are, but it adds this level of emotionality that I don't think the original has. And it is stunning. A Court of Silver Flame made me cry really hard. I actually read A Court of Silver Flames and A Little Life in tandem. So like I would read essentially A Little Life until I felt like the world is a terrible place. I hate everything. And then I would switch to Silver Flames and I would read a few chapters from Silver Flames. And I like cannot recommend this reading experience highly enough, because Silver Flames is like sugary sweet. It's Nesta, Feyre's like mean, terrible older sister, getting her love arc, but we like find out why she's mean and terrible, and it is about her like overcoming her trauma and finding love and finding acceptance and like finding value in herself, and it made me cry on multiple occasions, like quite hard. There was a point which I was reading A Little Life and A Court of Silver Flames when I was like pretty close to the end of both, when I was like, it's gonna be embarrassing when I cry more in A Court of Silver Flames than I did in A Little Life. The ending of A Little Life did prevent that from happening. I did cry more in A Little Life, but I cried a lot in A Court of Silver Flames. They Both Die at the End is a story of this dystopian world. I don't know if it's dystopian. It's pretty much our world, except you know when you're gonna die. They like call you on your death day and they're like, hey, you're gonna die today. And you have like one day to like get your affairs in order. The world is so interesting. I don't think he utilized his beautiful world well enough, but you know, to let me cry. They both die at the end, so. Queen of Shadows is the fifth book in the Throne of Glass series, and it's my favorite book in the Throne of Glass series, and it has a scene in it that makes me sob more than any other scene in this book, and it's the scene when they go to the cemetery, when Rowan and Aelin go to the cemetery. That scene made me like cry for days afterward. I would like think about it and cry. There's like, you can buy like cute pieces of art that like reference this scene, and I don't know how you would have that in your home. It would make me weep. Aerofire is the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series, and I like don't remember why specifically I cried in this, so we're gonna stick it there. She's like out training, and I think she's like coming to terms with the fact that she was like an assassin and like left her people, all that. The Bride Test is the second book in the Helen Huang series, so same series that the Heart Principle is in. It follows this woman whose name I can't recall, but she is brought over from Korea to serve as like a potential wife for this wealthy woman's son, and she has a secret son at home, and they fall in love. It's just like very sweet. It like is heartwarming and sweet and cozy. The Two Lives of Lydia Bird. This is the book I cried the most tears in 2021. People would think it would be a little life, but it was not. It was The Two Lives of Lydia Bird. The Two Lives of Lydia Bird follows this woman, and in the opening chapter, she's at her birthday dinner, and her fiance dies in a car accident on the way there. So that's how the book opens. And the rest of the book is exploring her grief. She winds up figuring out that she can kind of like go to an alternate reality where he's still alive if she takes a sleeping pill and falls asleep. And so it's the story of her like grieving his loss, but also like having to let go of him again and again and again. And I cried on almost every single page. I read this over the course of like 3 days, and the next days I would wake up like puffy because I cried so hard. So Empire of Storm, also a good tearjerker. It is the 6th book. I think I've called many books the 6th book. I don't know. You can look up an order. But The Throne of Glass, I did cry in it. When the Sky Fell in Splendor. This is another Emily Henry. This is about this town, Splendor, in Ohio, where there was a mill accident a few years ago, and most people lost someone in this big mill accident, and then these 4 kids one night are out, and then something falls from the sky, and there's like magical repercussions, but it's mostly about communal grief, and it did make me cry. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid is about 4 siblings as they like, it takes place over the course of 24 hours, but really we get like a ton of flashbacks. It's about these 4 siblings who are throwing a party at their Malibu house. It's like an annual tradition, and it like explores family and how they got to where they are, and like the tensions of familiar relationships, and it was really good. It's also the least I've probably ever cried in a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I think we only get like, we'll move it up there. Kingdom of Ash was the final Throne of Glass series book, and I cried really good in this one. There is a scene, it really gets you. It results in a field of wildflowers. If you know, you know. And that one wrecked me. Tower of Dawn also made me cry quite a bit. This one is the book, the 7th book. I don't know the order. It's the second to last book in the series. It is about Kale and his time in the southern continent. A lot of people hate this book because people are Kale haters, and I don't stand for that. Kale is out here really trying his best. Does he have magic? No. Does he make the right choices all the time? No, but he like really is trying. I like truly believe this young man is trying his very best. And in this book, we also meet Erin. Again, we met her earlier, and that reveal is truly the best. Sorry I spoiled that for you. It's like a baby one. That one made me cry, like probably the hardest. Oh, I loved that. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is about Addie LaRue, and she can live forever because she made a deal with the devil, but no one will remember her. And it's a very good story. It did make me cry multiple times. It is at its core the story about like the beauty of living and like relationships, but also just like life. November 9, a Colleen Hoover. Coho really knows how to make, pull at the heartstrings. November 9 is no exception. November 9 follows these people. They meet on November 9th, and they like kind of fall in love at first sight. They like spend the whole night together, but they decide they're like too young to like essentially meet their soulmates. So they decide they're going to check in with each other every November 9th for the next 5 years. And so we kind of watch their lives unfold over these November 9ths and the 5 years. There's of course a signature twist, and I wept. In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This book is stunning. Gorgeous. I think every single person should read it. It is a memoir of Carmen's time in an abusive relationship, but it is told through these vignettes of particularly the horror genre, but she like uses these like tropes and structures from all over. Like there's like a word problem, a choose your own adventure, but then there's also like a gothic romance and like a mystery. And the chapter's like short, and they just like chronicle her time in this abusive relationship and getting out. I didn't cry that hard while I was reading, I shed a couple tears. But when I closed this book, I sobbed. There was like some sense of like catharsis when this book got closed, where I was just like overcome with emotion. And so we put it in Margaery for that. I quickly checked Carmen's Instagram. She's doing well, in case you're wondering. And yeah. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous is this beautiful book by Ocean Vuong. He is, I believe, a poet laureate. He's definitely a poet. But you can tell his poetry is stunning. It is this boy, well, I guess he's a man at this point. It's this man writing letters to his mom and reflecting back on his childhood as a Vietnamese immigrant, and a gay kid, and like, and his mother who's dealing with like a lot of trauma, and they're like very poor, and it's gorgeous. And it made me cry an appropriate amount. The Book of Longing by Susan Monk Kidd is about Jesus' wife. So it's told from the perspective of this woman who is Jesus' wife, and it's a really fun story. Okay, fun maybe is not the correct word, but it was like a really interesting perspective. Jesus' wife is like a fun, sassy little lady, and I did cry when Jesus died because, spoiler alert, he does. Hello Girls by Emily Henry and Brittany Cavallaro is probably my second favorite Emily Henry book, and I think it's so underrated. It is one of her YA books, but it's a YA contemporary. There's no magical elements to it. It is about these two teen girls who both come from really bad home situations, and so they decide to run away together, but they don't have enough money because something happens, and so they have to like do it as like a crime spree. And it is like very fun, but also like very heartwarming, and really explores the like deep intimacy that I think is really only possible in these like teenage friendships, where you are growing up and learning so much about yourself so quickly, and I think you really become bonded to people, at least in my experience. I thought it was a really beautiful depiction of that, and it made me cry just a little. And then our last one, A Court of Rings and Ruin, and of course that is going to go up the top here because I'm a sucker. So notoriously, page, I think it's 666, based on TikTok. Something happens, and when I read this, Silver Flames was already out, and I had already been spoiled on like what happens with Feyre and Rhysand in A Court of Silver Flames. So like I knew what happened in 666 was not gonna stick. But I still cried like a baby coming home from the bar. Like I sobbed. You know what? I'm gonna move it down a level though, because like it resolved itself and then I resolved myself. But I loved that. Honestly, I cried from the moment Rhys started giving like the speech before the war, when he was like, I waited like 500 years for you and it would all be worth it even if we just had this time. Through the end of the book. I like cried pretty good. It could probably go in either. It's like right on the line. We'll put it up top with The Midnight Library as far as my tears. Okay. That is all the books I cried in 2021. Will I cry in more or less this year? That is the question. But that's all I have for you. So, yeah. If you want, you can subscribe. Or not. It is up to you. I'm not the boss of you. So, see you later, alligator. And then you say, in a wild crocodile, in case you're wondering. That's how it goes.